Before we get started, I have a little disclaimer first. Most of this was written down beforehand, but parts of this I'm going to wing it. So anyone who's easily offended by the content or the language may want to use the earmuff technique. A few people said I should keep it short, but it's my mom and I'll do what I want. Can I get an amen? First on behalf of my family, thanks for coming and your support. In addition to everyone here, we have all received many expressions of condolences on Facebook and on the phone and in person. Because of the short notice, we also understand a lot of people couldn't make it, and we understand. For those who don't know me, my name is John Weber. I'm Birdie's youngest son, aka the black sheep of the family. I've lived with my mom a total of 35 years of my life. Don't ask, it's complicated and sad. My point is, hands down, I was the closest person to her in her life. I've heard every single story of her life literally hundreds of times, and she didn't forget anything. She knew times, dates, places, birth dates, anything you can think of. She was like the human recorder. So what I thought I would do was to outline her life a little bit that a lot of people don't know about, and throw in some highlights with some few examples. Mom was born in Gallipolis, Ohio, with a twin named Becky. Mom was the oldest by a few minutes, and she took pride in that and enjoyed throwing it in Aunt Becky's face every time she had a chance. My grandpa wasn't there for her birth because he was serving in World War II. Growing up in Gallipolis, or what Mom would like to refer to as Wonderland, I have no idea why, don't ask. They lived on a farm and had chores, and she told me she hated every single minute of it. She hated it. She would never, ever live on a farm again. Eventually the family, now with 4 kids, moved to Chicago. Sometime soon after, Grandpa and Grandma would have to leave the kids home a lot. Well, that's when the kids began to develop their own personality. Ray was the oldest and the only boy. He was the black sheep of that family. He was blamed for everything. Birdie was a tomboy and just as bad as Ray. But Birdie was just better at hiding it. Those two were the dynamic duo together. They played ice hockey, ran the streets, smoked their first cigarette together, played hooky from school. Well, let's just say it was the 50s and it was a different time back then. Next in line was Becky, the perfect daughter, little Susie homemaker, or until Birdie could talk her into something that she wasn't supposed to be doing. Last was May, the baby of the family. Is she here? No? Okay. Birdie said that May complained and whined as a little kid all the time, unless she was being a tattletale and telling on the other kids. They couldn't stand her when she was younger, and didn't get much better after that. Eventually, Grandpa and Grandma split up, and the kids looked for a way to get away. Birdie was 14 at the time when she left home, and went and married some douchebag, I don't know what his name is, in Mexico. Mom said he was just looking for a living babysitter. She moved to California and was single soon after that. She soon set out to find her knight in shining armor, but eventually settled on a Dick. Dick Clapp married Birdie, and he was number 1 in her life. Mom soon became pregnant and gave birth. Now everyone pay attention, because this next part, it's one of the main themes in this whole speech. The golden child, Tammy Ann Clapp, was born, my sister. A year later, Richard Scott Clapp was born, my brother. While raising the kids at this time, Mom volunteered as an aide at a local veterans hospital during Vietnam. She said it was sad, they were young kids with arms blown off and everything, and I think that's how she got her knack for taking care of people, I guess. Her husband Dick soon realized that he had been demoted. Tammy was now number 1 in Birdie's life. Scott number 2. Dick came in a distant third. It was too much for him to handle, and Birdie didn't care. She packed up a VW Beetle with 2 young kids and 2 young dogs and drove by herself to Worcester. They all moved in a small house together with an all-night party animal as a roommate. It was nuts over there. The screaming, in the middle of the night, the crying, the drinking, the all-night partying, ping pong table in the front room going on all night. She eventually told her brother Ray she was moving out. She found a house on Old Avenue that was split into 2 apartments. The landlord who lived on the other side was a recent divorcee also. Times were tight, but they had their own spot, and eventually Birdie began working at Rubbermaid and was able to hire a babysitter for the kids so she could get more hours. Birdie told me a few times she would leave dinner. She would cook dinner every night before she went to work and leave it on the stove for everybody could have something to eat, and she would go to work. But she said the babysitter would eat everything up. There would never be nothing left when she got home, and she just thought the babysitter was just a pig. Years later, the landlord, my father, admitted to using the adorning door to the house, the apartment, and eating the food on the stove and then stinking back to his apartment before anybody caught him. Despite the breaking and entering, they fell in love and the rank changed again. Jack became number 1, Tammy number 2, Scott number 3. Marriage was soon planned after I began showing through Birdie's shirt and she couldn't hide it anymore. After I was born, and automatically, I was number 4. The family was complete. We had a mother who was creative, inventive, smart, strong, protective, loving, and was afraid of no man, and had no problem being direct to anybody. After some time, Tammy left for college, and Scott joined the Marines. It was just Dad, Mom, and me were the only ones left in the house. The rank was Jack 1, I became number 2, Tammy number 3, and Scott number 4. Life was good, and I was on top, and I was on the way up. My house of cards soon crashed around me. You see, Tammy brought her new boyfriend Rick over to meet Mom and Dad. Rick was shy, quiet, and from Mount Eaton. Needless to say, if you knew my dad, he had a field day with that info. But Mom and Dad fell in love with Rick, and soon Tammy and Rick were married. The new rankings came out that week. Birdie ranked Jack number 1, Tammy number 2, Rick number 3, I was number 4, and Scott was bringing up the rear, number 5. Tammy and Rick solidified their spot with the birth of the golden child, Brett Yoder, Birdie's first grandchild. Bradley was soon born thereafter, and the two of them were like the second coming of the Lion King. I believe the movie is loosely based on their story. Around that time, Jack got an inoperable brain tumor, and Birdie cared for him in our house until his death in 1990. For Birdie, things changed overnight. She hadn't paid a bill or had a job since they were married. It was really hard for her, and she was never truly the same. But then it was just me and Mom at the house. Only in Birdie and me know everything that happened in that house. The financial struggles, the teenage problems, the nightly parties. It was just a house of depression. She loved my dad so much, I found this letter in her stuff when I was going through it the other night, and I want to read it for you now. It says, Wednesday morning. Dear Birdie, I know I don't tell you things that you want to hear, but it's the way I am and I can't seem to change. But I will try. I love you. I think you know that, even though I don't say it every day. I am concerned about you, and I do worry about you. I think about you all the time, and I'm not telling you. Driving the car, sitting in the office, even when I'm away in Vegas, you're always on my mind. Believe it. Screw everyone else. As long as we have each other, we can't lose. I love you more than you'll ever know. Jack. P.S. See you this afternoon. And I don't know if I need to go into what see you this afternoon is, but I think we all know what it means. After Dad's passing, the rankings were recalculated. And again, number 1 was Tammy. Rick was number 2. Brett and Bradley had moved to number 3. Scott was number 4, and I became number 5. Now, to defend my 5th ranking from Birdie, I was 15 at the time when my dad passed away and had a smart mouth just like Birdie, so it didn't help. We butted heads a lot. I like to refer to this as the dark years. In 1993, I graduated and went to college. Birdie stayed on at the house with some family friends who rented rooms upstairs. Things calmed down for a while, and I transferred to a school closer to home and moved back in. Scott had escaped. My brother Scott had escaped from whatever town he was living in at the time, and he moved back home too. A little bit afterwards, Birdie took a vacation to see her sister Becky in Tennessee and left Scott in charge. When Birdie got back and saw the house, needless to say, Scott was never allowed to be in charge again. The rankings came out after the vacation. Tammy was number 1. Rick was number 2. I begged my way up to number 3. Brett and Bradley were number 4. And Scott became last, number 5. Birdie soon hit us with a bombshell when she sold the house and moved to Tennessee for good to be with her twin sister Becky. My mom loved her to death, and Birdie loved her kids just like her own. Things were looking up for Birdie and Becky, and then Becky got throat cancer, 1 in a million type of cancer. My mom soon moved into her house and started taking care for her until the very end. And when my mom was down there, I also found another card that she had kept from my brother and sister that they sent to her in 2003. And it says, "Mom, I just wanted to let you know how proud Scott and I are of you to take care of Aunt Becky to the point of letting yourself go. We want to let you know that you are an awesome, wonderful person. You were truly a great sister, and I know Aunt Becky was so grateful for you. We love you and wish you the best. Love, Scott and Tammy." After the passing of my Aunt Becky, my mom decided to move back to Ohio, and I was with her, and by then we had a dog and a grandma to bring with us. I moved back in with Mom back in Ohio and Worcester to help save money. It sounded like a good idea at the time, but let's just say 3 generations of Italians in one house shouldn't be allowed. About that time, her dad, Robert Newhouser, also got sick. Well, about this time, the drinking and the smoking kicked into high gear. I could see her slowly getting sicker and sicker. She would complain, but it never stopped her routine. She went to the doctor all the time and said nothing. I saw it coming weeks ago and called Tammy and Scott and told them, but when it came to doctors, Birdie wasn't having any of it. She was the most stubborn person I knew. But she also knew how sick she was, and she knew that if she went to the hospital, she wasn't coming home. Like Frank Sinatra, Birdie did it her way. But before she died, Birdie kicked out her last ranking for the family. Tammy was 1A. Rick followed closely, 1B. I became number 2. Scott was number 3. And all of her grandkids were number 4. Birdie had a lot of loves in her life. A lot of things that people didn't know about, and a lot of people did. And I'd like to go ahead and mention some of them. She loved yard work. She loved being outside. She always loved doing something. She wasn't the type of person who could just sit there. She loved animals. She loved her pets. Grandkids. Handymen. She was a handyman. And she didn't love handymen, but she was a handyman, let me put it that way. She loved country music. She was a rep for the Loretta Lynn fan club for years. Lifetime movie channel. Loved talking on the phone with Tammy 10 times a day. She loved going to Vegas and playing blackjack. She loved Busch Light beer, and she loved Winston Light 100s. She loved all of her nieces and nephews. She loved all of her children's friends. She loved stained glass. She taught it up at the College of Worcester for a while. She also dabbled in photography. She loved to cook, and boy was she good at it. She loved it when it was just me, my brother, and my cousin Brad sitting around the kitchen table, just joking around with her. However, the one thing she loved the most was her husband, and the day he died, she was dead set on making it her mission to join him as fast as she could. They were true soulmates. I also want to take this time and give out a few special mentions. Holly Lulitt, or McMorrow, whatever you're going by, my sister's friend. Deb Kreiner. My mom loved both of you guys, and she would want me to thank you for being there for my sister Tammy. To all my friends who knew my mom, she loved all of you too. I want to highlight her first son from another mother. His name was Froggy. She couldn't get enough of your humor. You made her happy whenever she saw you or talked to you, even when you didn't know she needed it. Birdie's second son from another mother is Andre. You were respectful and thoughtful when you didn't have to be. I know she would also want me to thank you for being there for me for the last few days when I needed you, even though I was too proud to ask for help. You just knew. I love you for that in a non-gay way. For my brother Scott, well, as far as I know, he has a lot of friends on Facebook wishing him well, and my sister. A little side note on that, though. There is a third brother. It's me, named John. I've just noticed that a lot of people said, sorry, Scott and Tammy. But that's besides the point. I can just see that Scott doesn't bring me up in the conversation with too many of his friends. Anyways, on behalf of my mother, I want to thank Scott's new special friend, Wendy, for being there for him, because Scott was secretly a mama's boy, and I know this is breaking him up. Next, Mom would want me to thank Rick Yoder, Tammy's husband. Mom loved you like a son. We never had to worry about Tammy one bit. As soon as she met you, like Jack and Birdie, Rick and Tammy were soulmates, and still are. To the rest of the world, December 5th, 2013, will be known as the day one of the greatest men in the history died, Nelson Mandela. But for us here, and especially her family, this day will be known as the greatest woman in the world died. And I just want to read one more thing that I wrote. And this is a special thanks to my sister, my brother, and my mom. The three most important people in my life right now. It's called Thoughts from the Heart. To Tammy, you have been there for me since the start, even changing my diapers after a very wet fart. In my heart, you are the only sister I will ever claim. I know if I'm at fault, you won't hesitate to lay the blame. Honesty, dedication, caring, devotion are qualities that make you stand out. With the love you give to everyone, there shouldn't be a doubt. It is plain to see you have something special that Rick knew right offhand. That together you could handle enough kids to start your own rock and roll band. You are a beautiful sister, a wife, and a mother like no other. But always remember the love you have from your baby brother. To Scott, as a brother and a friend, you will have a heart that is full. Always listen to your advice, even when it's a bunch of bull. You told me once to ignore some things and they will go away. We realized that was not the case when Mom came in that day. You're the kind of brother everyone dreams that they could have for their own. I just wish someday you'll figure out why your keyboard is so out of tone. You're the only person I look up to, my hero. I think that's why everyone believes I'm such a weirdo. They just don't understand our relationship we have with each other. That's why I'm quick to answer. I love him. He's my brother. This last one's to my mom. I hope you know I will always love you. We have been through so much, and it has only made us closer. I'm so very thankful to have a mother like you, and sometimes when I'm just sitting in my room, I think about all the nice things you've done for me and how much they mean to me. No one could ever compare to you, Mom, and I don't know how I could ever survive this long without you. Your presence in my life has made such an impact on me, and your words have always remained close to my heart. The time we spend together now is limited, but it only makes me cherish it even more. I want to spend more time with you, but living so far away, it has been tough not seeing you. I just want you to know, Mom, wherever I am, wherever you are, I will always love you, and you will always be in my heart. I'm sorry for all the times I've made you worry about me, and I thank you for being the best mom you could possibly be. I love you more than you'll ever know. Love always, John. And that's all I have to say about that.